So, well, after this session, we are moving into the new topic, as I just say, this time is mobility, and why the topic of mobility has space in a Zero Waste Building Festival. So for us, as we mentioned at the beginning, waste is everything that we can consider that has some type of impact. So at the end, the mobility industry only not generate physical waste in the production, but also it generates a large amount of CO2. And this is impacting directly the environment, and that's why it's so important for us. So we, as consumers, we need to think that this is also an important area, and is an area we need to be paying attention to. So let's see what are the smart choices, what is the future of mobility. So today we are going to come with Lynette Cheah. She's a professor in the Singaporean University of Technology and Design. And the name of this session is Taking Steps Towards Sustainable Urban Mobility. We know that transportation is responsible for almost a quarter of global carbon emissions, and these include emissions from air, maritime, rail, and road transport, needed to move both people and goods that we use. So focusing on urban mobility, the goal is to achieve more sustainable transport, which contributes to low carbon, resilient, healthy, and livable cities. How can we achieve this? We will discover with Lynette. So now let's welcome Lynette, that I can see she's already here. Let me allow you to go into the stage. Okay, just give us 1 second. I saw that you were here. And you couldn't join. Okay, so let me see if I can include you, Lynette. If not, Lynette, please, I need you to refresh this page and ask again to join, please. So just for you to know, Lynette is joining today from Singapore, so we're really thankful also that she's joining a really different time zone to us, so it's a bit late. But yeah, she was really happy to join and bring us more information about this really wonderful project that she's trying to develop in Singapore. So let's see. Okay, now I see you're joining. Okay, hi Lynette, can you hear me?
Hi, yes, I can hear you. How are you?
Okay, fine, really good. And you?
Yes, so the lag issues, I hope that wouldn't affect our presentation. We're very happy to be here with the Zero Waste Berlin Festival.
Okay, no problem. Thank you to you to stay here with us today. So, well, I know that you have been having some issues with sharing your screen. Is this solved? Can you maybe try now to see if we can see it?
Yeah, let's try now. Can you see me fine on my webcam?
Right now I can only hear you, but maybe if the internet connection is not so good, maybe if the camera is switched off, it's not a problem.
Okay. My camera's on, but I hope it is.
Okay, so at the beginning I could see you, but not anymore.
Are you able to see my screen?
No, not yet. So you click on share, right? Okay. So the solution we have for this is like, if you cannot share it, maybe I can try to share it. Yeah. Now it's loading. Okay, so wait a moment. Now, yes, we can see it. Okay.
Yeah, I hope.
Okay, so as soon as I go out of the stage, your presentation will be a bit bigger and the audience can see it as well.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for hosting. Yeah.
Okay, so I leave you here. and I see you later for the Q&A.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's begin. Again, very helpful for giving me the chance to share urban mobility and how. So let's take a look. Let me start with a question. So how many vehicles do you think there are in the world? You might take a quick guess to see. I hope you're able to see my screen right now. It should be the second slide posing a question. Let me know otherwise if that's not true. So how many vehicles are there in the world? The answer is a lot. So there are about more than 1 billion vehicles in the world. Most of them are passenger cars and light vehicles. So these are the lighter, smaller vans and trucks, just under a billion vehicles. And then the rest of them are actually the commercial vehicles that bring goods around to us. The next slide number 4, you should be seeing, we're looking at this growth in motorizations. Just over a billion vehicles in the world today, and projections have it at a very fast rate. So by year 2050, more than 2 billion by then, and 3 times freight activity that we are expecting. So projected stock of vehicles is growing, and mostly in the developing economies that we can see in this chart over here over time. By year 2050, we're projecting much growth in this. So this brings about a few challenges we're concerned about. Like in the earlier presentation, and impacts on climate change was also mentioned. We're concerned about CO2 emissions arising from transportation. It's responsible for about 1/4 of global greenhouse gas emissions, and of which about 74% are due to road vehicles. And then we split that further, we see that it's both passenger vehicles in the bottom right, the purple wedge there, as well as the commercial vehicles, which is the green wedge shown on the slide. So road vehicles are definitely, responsible of global emissions. Other challenges include congestion. So we are seeing congestion in many cities in the world. So this just shows some of the cities that face real challenges in terms of the number of hours that commuters have to spend on the roads in their vehicles, and reduce speeds that they have to therefore experience. So there's climate change impacts, there's congestion impacts. There's also material impacts. So again, relating to the early presentation on waste management and material use and resources used in building all vehicles that we use. These are some of the issues resulting from the use of cars. But of course, cars are not bad. Right? They bring to us so many opportunities in accessing economic activities or jobs. It's a sign, in a sense, of a healthy economy if travel activity is present. So travel activity actually correlates with GDP, or the gross domestic product. So economic activity results in greater travel demand, but it does result in environmental impact that we're so concerned about. So how we then deal with this situation? So the goal is to think about sustainable mobility, and this has been defined previously as a way for society to sort of move freely, access to the things and services that they are looking for, communicate, establish relationships without sacrificing the needs of future generations, and making sure that today and in the future all the human and ecological values are preserved. So how do we go about achieving this though? This involves different facets. We have already seen under environmental concerns. In order to achieve sustainable mobility, we want to make sure that we sort of minimize the climate change impacts, minimize air quality issues, noise issues, waste issues. At the same time, preserving opportunities for the economy to grow, for employment to be there, to remain competitive, and enough energy to do all the things we would like to do. At the same time, trying to balance other needs of society, like making sure transport doesn't result in too many fatalities on our road, keeping things safe, keeping people safe, healthy, provide access to all different segments, right? So how do we go about achieving it? There's this approach called Avoid, Shift, Improve, which is the title of this presentation. It's an initiative or sort of approach that popularized by this German development agency, GIZ. So I have set up this program or product called Sustainable Urban Transportation. And these are the three main recommendations that have come out. So I'm just sharing and relaying this with you. Around, but it's very nicely summarized. So I thought it's a nice way to share with all of you on how we can achieve sustainable urban mobility. So let me go through each one in turn. They all revolve around considering cities, the perspective in cities to be planned around people rather than planning around cars. So in many cities, we dedicate a lot of ways and all that, whereas instead this sort of approach tries to prioritize people instead rather than the vehicles themselves within the cities. So under the Avoid or Reduce initiative, we're trying to reduce demand, travel demand, or reducing the need to travel in order to achieve system efficiency, so transportation system efficiency. And this might involve steps like developing cities that are more geared towards the use of public transport or transit, promoting city development or urban development that's more compact with mixed uses within a smaller area, by providing greater access to services that we're interested in a smaller space. Different optimize the road network, the current existing road network, and how we can make use of it, and then telework. So let me talk briefly about each one of these. So here's an image. I hope you can see that sort of shows an impression of car-centric cities. So it's a Swedish artist that sort of envision what we're basically doing. So let me turn off my just in case it's taking the screen, as you can see the picture a little bit. So this interpretation of car-centric cities has, sort of very clearly see the different road space that's dedicated as opposed to the people, other users of the space like pedestrians. So this is one interpretation of car-centric cities that ideally we'd like to avoid. There's a very nice book called Life Between Buildings, promoting, again, making cities more people-centric. That's promoted by Yen Gal. So it's a really nice, again, a position or principle about developing cities to make sure that it revolves around people rather than the cars within it. So in trying to achieve this reduced travel demand, I think transit-oriented development helps in many ways. So this calls for providing neighborhoods that are very attractive and walkable, where there's a mix of different users, and then therefore people can reach all the different things that they need quickly, multiple travel options available, as well as good public spaces where they can meet the neighbors and friends and family, and there's a strong community engagement. So here's just one picture of what it looks like in Singapore, where I'm from. So one of the neighborhoods, the town center, which promotes transit-oriented development. The use of technologies can also help us make use of the transportation system better, like more efficiently. So if there are ways for vehicles to communicate with one another, or infrastructure to communicate to vehicles, I think that also helps in making sure traffic remains smooth and to minimize congestion, to manage the current use of the transport network. And then the other idea is telecommunication, right, which we're now so familiar with under the new normal, the pandemic situations. And so, like right now, I'm not in Berlin participating in the festival in person, but I'm here with you, talking over over not Zoom, but hop in, and it can be equally effective. So same thing in other areas of work interactions, social interactions as well. It can take place virtually. And then this could be one way to reduce travel demand upon the physical transportation network. So some of the images here show the world of telemedicine, where you don't have to make a trip to visit a doctor, but you can actually consult a doctor, a medical professional, if you're not feeling well through a Zoom video interaction. Or the picture on the right shows Microsoft envisioning what augmented reality can help about. So you don't need a plumber to come to your house. You can actually fix it yourself if there's someone to guide you with technologies. So these are great ways where technologies can come and help reduce travel demand. So the other approach under the avoid, shift, improve paradigm, we're talking about shifting modes. So when we talk about shifting modes, we're really talking about discouraging the use of private towards more shared transportation modes, like public transportation, so using buses or railways, or promoting more active transportation, like walking or cycling in cities. More options, right? There's scooters and personal mobility devices people can use. So this is called micro-mobility. Or we can share rides. So either share it in the form of shared vehicles or carpooling. So in Singapore, instead of Uber, we have this service platform called Grab, and then you can share a ride. There's always an option to share a ride that's taking on your own. So while we try to promote the use of these shared modes, we're also trying to discourage the use of cars. So managing vehicle ownership, vehicle use is also valuable in the city, and managing parking options. So I don't know whether you heard about the case of car ownership in Singapore. So there's a very high tax imposed on buying and purchasing vehicles here. So the tax is about 3 times the price of the car. So which really deters car wash. That's one way to try to improve the way we use existing fleet vehicles on the roads and minimize the fleet size actually. So if we shift modes away from private cars to public transport, active transport, micromobility, these would help us improve the overall trip efficiency. This one image that tries to portray that, where you have 3 images of what the street might look like if 60 people were to use different modes of transportation. This is something that is one of the German cities had sort of put out. It was a very nice way to visualize, the impact of cars on our cities. So the middle panel shows a footprint of 60 vehicles, and then the 60 people added in, and pretty much occupying the entire street. Show if they were to use bicycles instead, and then the image on the right shows if they were to use a bus instead. So promoting the use of active modes like cycling or public transport like the bus would really help preserve the spaces within our city. If we look at the life cycle emissions, so life cycle emissions just helps to capture all the emissions from the cradle to grave of the vehicles on a per passenger kilometer basis. So we're looking at grams of CO2 per passenger per kilometer traveled for car, which is the first bar on the chart here, versus the train or metro service. So clearly, if we were to again shift towards bus or railway travel within the city, we can reduce our greenhouse gas emissions per person and distance that we travel. Yeah. So there are other benefits to cycling, and I think for cities it's also ideal because many of trips that are undertaken tend to be trips if below 5 kilometers, makes it very doable on a bicycle. I'm sure many European cities have caught on to cycling. In other cities developed, I think it would be good to promote the use of bicycles as much as possible. It's also health, yeah. On walking, yes. Walkability is a way to measure how well the community is designed, or how well the city is designed to promote walking and cycling as alternatives to driving cars. There's this thing called a walk score. You've heard of this, but you can actually enter any address in the walk scores website, and then it would report to you a number, like a walk score of 86. This particular address in Berlin, where the festival events was held, and then this area is very walkable, which is very nice, which means you can very easily access the shopping, schools, other common destinations that are appealing, like restaurants, dining, and so on. So promoting walking is definitely more helpful, more healthy, more environmentally friendly. Promotes savings actually, and builds community. So for cities to be able to promote cycling and walking like that will be very helpful. Under the of achieving sustainable mobility to improve. So when we talk about improving, we're thinking about vehicles and how much efficiency can be gained by designing the vehicle, right? So we're trying to improve the energy efficiency of transport, the different transport modes, and in particular vehicles, we're talking about right sizing, and I'll talk about what this means, or cleaner vehicles like vehicles that rely on cleaner electricity along with the use of them, and then shared autonomous vehicles coming to many cities, and cities are starting to explore the idea of autonomous or self-driving vehicles. So if in conventional vehicles, they tend to rely on combustion engines, which have been around for a very long time. But if you were to look at the efficiency profile, they're actually quite not so efficient. So it takes of the energy in the fuel that we put into our vehicles, only about less than 20% ends up as energy at the wheels. And even then, of the amount of energy required to move the vehicle, most of it's moving the vehicle itself, not really moving the passengers, which are lighter than the vehicle. So in order to sort of address this, I think there are things you can do. You can think about improving the energy efficiency. How can we get the efficiency up? We can also think about reducing the road load to begin with. So if the vehicle itself was not so heavy, or you'd made with lighter materials, or the vehicle itself was not so large, make sure that you can size it according to the number of occupants that tends to use the vehicle. I think that would really help. This is a concept car. I'm showing you a picture of a concept car right now by Daimler, where they have envisioned the use of a shared fleet of very small micro cars, built for two, and these are electric cars, in the future, likely autonomous or self-driving as well, and they can be shared among in the city among the residents, and therefore reducing again the spaces taken up by cars, reducing the fleet number or number of vehicles needed to serve the entire city population, and then relying on a more efficient powertrain that would again use energy from a cleaner grid, and therefore reduce the number of emissions and energy required to serve the population. So while I've talked a lot about avoiding travel demand, reducing travel demand, shifting modes from private car use to public transport, or walking and cycling, or improving the vehicles that we use, many of the initiatives concern city planning and urban planning, but there's a lot of room for individual choices to also make a difference. And I think that's one of the great things about the festival, right? It's about how we can all make different choices to minimize waste and resource uses. So I think in terms of transportation and mobility choices that we have, I think the number. So choosing which town we live in, one that's more compactly designed, would be ideal, where you're closer to work, maybe. Virtual meetings, the one we're having now, biking and walking, like taking public transport, carpooling, sharing a vehicle, and if not, if you do have a choice of a vehicle ownership, then pick a smaller vehicle that's right size. So many vehicles now have an occupancy rate of less than 2, even though the vehicle tends to be able to accommodate 4 or 5 people. Hybrid cars, and then eventually electric cars where possible. And other initiatives like traveling off peak also helps. I didn't cover so much about transport, but freight is also a big part of goods. Is also a big part of transportation in cities. So ideally, when we think about purchasing things or consuming goods, buying local is always helpful because it means that the number of miles or kilometers traveled by the particular product is minimized. Delivering to parcel lockers as opposed to delivering to your doorstep also helps, because that means that the likelihood of a successful delivery is higher for the truck delivering the goods. And then not choosing fast deliveries also helps. So again, this allows more time for the carriers or the logistic providers to consolidate deliveries before sending it to you. So these are some of the individual choices that I think can really help us towards this sustainable urban mobility. So the key takeaways, I think this is my last slide. Sustainable transport, contributes to low carbon cities, healthier cities, more livable cities, because we're designing them around people rather than vehicles that we use. The avoid, shift, improve approach that I was describing can really help to promote this vision. And while city planning plays a very big role, individual choices can also motivate, I think, these changes towards what we're looking for. So that's the end of my presentation. I really appreciate your attention, and thanks for having me. Really welcome opportunity to answer any questions you may have at this point.
Okay, so
I see there's a question. Hi, Cora.
Thank you so much for the presentation. It has been really insightful. I think there has been some ups and downs a bit with the presentation. So I guess it's the internet connection that sometimes this is also the things that can happen when we are online, unfortunately. But yeah, I think it has been really clear. And your main point, which one has been, some takeaway that I have seen and you have commented a few times is efficiency. So I think we need to be more efficient. Apart from all the other things we can do, many times I guess that the way cities are built, or even all the options as you mentioned, this fast delivery that we know is not the most sustainable thing, but at the same time we also understand there are so many people doing it to do it in a more efficient way, Mm-hmm. So let's see, I think we have here one question. And so from Christina, thank you for your presentation, Lynette. So regarding shifting to cycling and more pedestrian areas for mixed use, I would like to know whether how much disabled, sick, and elderly citizens are actively being considered in the design principles and involved into the development of these future mobility strategies.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it brings up the question of equity, right? Making sure again that everyone has are able to access, again, the goods they're looking for, or the jobs, and that. So it is important, and I think many cities, for cycling, it might be more challenging, but public transport should be accommodating, I think, of many. It's also not just the vehicles themselves, but access areas. So making sure that neighborhoods are not isolated, they have service options to them. I think it's something that may have been neglected, but I think increasingly being mentioned also. In Singapore, we have a land transport master plan, and one of the principles is inclusivity, where making sure that again every different population segments are accounted for and able to move around. as freely as anyone else. So initiatives like making sure the vehicles are wheelchair friendly, the stops are wheelchair friendly, or even some of the hiring the bus captains. So we also look at service staff are in terms of employment, we're open to hiring and so on. So yes, it's a really good one. Something to be considered. I think as part of sustainable mobility, this is one of the aspects right under this goal, not just minimize environmental impact, but also making sure society is well taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think like even with the current transport system, there is so many things that need to be improved. So I think this is absolutely a good opportunity for the new projects and new prototypes to come to integrate and to make it easier for these people as well. Not that unfortunately all of us can see how difficult it could be sometimes to just take a bus for a person that is not, like young or moving completely free. So yeah, I think this is a really good topic to cover.
Yeah.
And definitely, it needs to be considered. Like Christina say, this is not many times considered into mobility topics, and I think also it should be in the public agenda.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, increasingly, the private hires, so these are like the Uber and the Grab. It offers door-to-door services within the city, and it's not always affordable for everyone, but sometimes that option is available. And then they have the option when you order a ride in some of these services. Some of these are also available. Yeah. In Singapore, the elderly also have travel cards, so it's actually cheaper for the elderly to travel on public transport than for adults, working adults. So we've even heard of we actually studied some data looking at how the elderly the movement patterns, the mobility patterns across the cities, and then we actually see some elderly taking joyrides. So they just they don't really mean to visit any particular location, but they just see it as a way to spend their time.
Yeah, it can happen. Yeah, funny though. Well, so Lynette, it's time for us to close this conversation. It has been really insightful presentation, really nice, and really one of the ones I was expecting the most, because I think you have a really interesting project there in Singapore, and really thankful also that you could join today, just considering also the time that is for you. So really thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, somebody have more questions, I really tell you can put them on the chat and Lynette can reply them for you.
Great. Yes, very happy to do that. Thanks so much for having me. And
Okay, thank you so much, Lynette. Have a good time. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.